And welcome everybody. Glad you could come so we can talk about advanced add-on techniques today. Let's just do I think probably we'll all know each other, but let's do a quick round of introductions anyway. I'm Randy Fay. I'm the lead maintainer of the DDEV project. I'm in Palisade, Colorado, where it's supposed to be 100 degrees or 40 centigrade the next few days. It's been cooking out there in the middle of the day, but we've been getting out earlier. So I know that a lot of you are in the midst of heat waves as well. Looking forward to talking about this today. Mark, go ahead.
Hey, buddy. Mark Lebrecht. I live on the west coast of Canada, up in BC, and I've been working with DDEV for probably 5 or 6 years, whatever it's been. And well, maybe not that long, but close to. And then been working on Drupal for 7 or 8 years now, and my whole team uses DDEV. So looking forward to learning about add-ons so that I can use it to better our projects.
Ofer, go ahead.
Ofer Shal, I live in Boca Raton, Florida. Been a DDEV fan since I found it and brought it into DrupalPod to help projects be able to do things locally, but also on the cloud in the same project. Happy to be here.
Great. Val the Bald.
Hi, my name is Val, currently in Sofia, Bulgaria. I'm hard with conversions. It's 35 degrees here, so also quite hot. Yeah. Quite hot. We expect some more nicer weather in a week or so.
Where are you, Val?
Sorry?
Where are you in the world?
Sofia, Bulgaria.
Okay. Yeah, very cool. Okay, who's next? Alberto?
Yeah, I guess. Hello, everybody. I'm based in Zurich, Switzerland. Fan of DDEV as well for quite a few years now, and using it in every project I can and introducing it in all organizations I can as well. So yeah, happy to be here and learn with you guys.
Bernardo.
Hey, I'm based out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, and I came to pick up some DDEV tricks. I'm actually doing a talk at Asheville this weekend, so I thought, oh, this is very timely. Maybe I'll find something in there that is like a nice extra nugget of information. And I work as a front-end developer for Alvoltis.
Very cool. Bob, go ahead.
I had to find that mute button. I'm Bob McDonald in Maple Ridge, BC, Canada. I'm excited to learn about more advanced topics around DDEV add-ons. Really appreciate DDEV. It makes everything easier.
Very cool. Great to have you. Ralph, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Ralph from Nuremberg, Germany. I'm into Drupal and yeah, using DDEV also for a while now.
For a while, he says. All right. And Stas.
Hi everyone, I'm Stas Zhuk. I'm a DDEV maintainer. I'm from Kremenchuk, Ukraine, and I mostly work with DDEV on Laravel projects. And I also happy to be here and see everyone.
Great. Thank you all for coming. It's lovely to see you. And it's always scary when you're waiting for a meeting, wondering if anybody will show up, you know? So thank you for being here. So let me go ahead and put up the agenda. It might get out of control. We might have too much, but we'll have a good time anyway. Let me see if I can properly grab the outline here. I'll put it in the chat. So we'll take a look at add-ons in general and what the resources are that we have for them. And I guess I'll just go ahead and share my screen now since I'm going to be looking at it, and it's not fair to look at things and people not seeing the same thing. So. Okay, let's see how we do here. See if I can get the helper things out of the way. So we'll take a look at what your resources are and how to learn about these things. We'll take a look at the very quickest stuff about how to create an add-on and that kind of thing, and how to customize an add-on, and when to check in. Take a look at batch tests and debugging batch tests, and interacting with users during install.yaml, those kinds of things. Maybe we'll get, I'll bet you this will be too much, but we'll take a look, but feel free. We want to deal with we want to talk about the things that are most important to you. So feel free to chime in and just say your question or your concern or your interest, and we'll be happy to do that. How many of you use add-ons?
Me, for sure.
Like any kind?
Of any kind, yeah. DDEV
Yeah,
add-ons.
me as well, yeah.
Yes, I used to Elasticsearch.
How many of you maintain add-ons or have at least tried to create one? Yeah. Ralph, the Alley Watch is yours, right?
No, the Spidergram.
Oh, Spidergram is yours, yeah. I wonder who maintains the Alley Watch, but you pay attention to that one, right?
Not really,
Okay,
but I
all
take a
right.
look.
Yeah. I was just looking at all the ones that are out there. Let me just flip over and we'll take a look at what's there. If I do a DDEV get -- list, then I will see the official add-ons, the ones that live in the DDEV namespace that we pay attention to and monitor the tests on and that kind of thing. And you can see that there's even the official ones. That's a lot of official ones, 24 official ones. All of these have repositories, as you can see, and the repository name is the same as the DDEV get name. So if you wanted to look at the DDEV adminer one, you'd go to github.com/DDEV/DDEV adminer. And if you wanted to install it, you would do a DDEV get DDEV/DDEV adminer. So that's what they are. Let's just take a look at that. Well, let's take a look at the most popular add-on, which is DDEV PHPMyAdmin. First of all, I can do DDEV get DDEV PHPMyAdmin, and it will install that, and it'll tell us what it's been doing. In this case, it checks the DDEV version to make sure that it's compatible with what we're about to install. Then it installs a couple of YAML files and a host command, so you can do a DDEV PHPMyAdmin. And then if I do a DDEV restart, I'll have that available to me. And so it installed an extra service with a Docker compose.phpmyadmin.yaml, and it installed the PHPMyAdmin. This one is for Gitpod, and Stas has been battling with that this morning. So, but this is the most popular add-on, and we'll take a look at it. It's pretty simple, but let's just take a look at. So you see, we've got the link here for it, and we'll just take a look at that. Here it is. It's got its own repository. You can make PRs and issues on it, and you can improve it. So please do. it's had a long life. It used to live inside DDEV core, as you probably know, and people complained about that because they have so many different database browsers that they use, that they wanted to be able to use theirs and not use resources on phpMyAdmin. And so for that reason, it was removed. So, but it's still there and still usable, and it's the most popular add-on. Let's take a look at the resources that we have for add-ons. If we go to the DDEV docs, if you just search for add-on, it will come up right away with that. And here's the suggestion about how to manage add-ons. You can do a DDEV get -- installed to see what's there. So if I go back over here and I do a DDEV get -- installed, then there's the one that I have. I can do a DDEV get -- remove phpMyAdmin, and it's gone. But I probably want it, so just
Randy,
restart.
where does it save the date installed for your add-ons? Where, like in DDEV, where does that get
Yeah,
saved?
let's take a look at that.
Just out of curiosity.
I could probably do this more effectively, and not in here. I can do this more effectively in the browser here. So let's do this.
Sorry if I derailed your
Here.
train of thought there.
No, it's fine. I probably should say we'll look at that in a little bit, but here's where this stuff goes in the add-on metadata. And here's the phpMyAdmin test.
Okay.
So there's the on that. And
Cool,
that's how
thank
it knows what to uninstall, for example, when you're uninstalling it.
Mhm.
So that's how it knows to do those things.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So let's go back to the docs here. You can add custom configuration to an add-on, like you can override it, especially with the Docker Compose. So for example, with Redis 7, what you would normally do is add a Docker Compose.redis 7 _ extra.yaml if you wanted to change the image that it was using, for example. So you can override, and if you do it that way, if you do it that way, then when you do a DDEV get, it doesn't stumble on that and it keeps your configuration. And when you do a remove, it doesn't throw that away because it's recognized as your own things. Anyway, that's the docs are there. Add-ons are super popular, as you know, and they've been a great success, mostly because people that know the biggest idea is that people that know the territory, like Redis, for example, or phpMyAdmin, those are the people that are maintaining their add-on. And so the idea that we have separate repositories with separate maintainers is the biggest idea behind add-ons. Add-ons aren't perfect, and they have some things to learn yet. One of our goals for this year is to add extra parameters on DDEV get. So you can say DDEV get and fill in the blanks about what it ought to do while it's doing the DDEV get. But they've been very popular, and the fact that they're so easy to create has given them quite a life. So any questions about adding custom configuration? It's right there. We're going to take a look at the Docker Compose recipe in a second, which will help with that. multiple things you can do with an add-on. So here explains how to use the DDEV add-on template, and then it explains the sections of the install.yaml, and we'll take a look at that. And the rest of this is pretty advanced. We'll look at a little more at that. Other resources, the additional services. With an add-on, you're usually either just adding a feature to DDEV, like an extra custom command, or you're adding a service like phpMyAdmin does, which is a separate Docker container, or you might be editing or changing how the DDEV web server works. So you can do all of those things with an add-on, and we'll take a look at a couple of those. But the details here are in the defining additional services. So it shows some Docker compose.star.yaml examples and what's actually required. So there's the resources on that. But we're going to take a look at more examples. I'm just trying to make sure that you know where the resources are. The add-on template, which probably one or two of you have used, is super easy to use. It's a template where you can just click use this template and it'll make a new one, and then you can edit and fiddle with it to go forward. It is, at DrupalCon Portland, we had a 50-minute BOF, a birds of a feather session, just an informal BOF, where we just did this and actually created an add-on, and everybody did it, not just me. Everybody did it right there around the table, and we were successful in that much time, and people had their add-ons going. So it's that easy to do. The devil's in the details, of course. What is it that you want to do? Doing it's easy if you know what it is that you want to do. So that's the list of, that's the set of resources. Any questions? We'll go deeper on those individual things now and take a look at what they are. But any questions about where the resources are, or questions that were triggered by what we just looked at? Okay, Kat has a question. Kat just came over to check on everything. Okay, I think we have covered a bunch of things, but I want to look at actual add-ons so we can see what they are. I did want to mention that normally in DDEV, when you add an add-on, you will check in the .ddev directory. So unfortunately, I have a lot of outstanding stuff here, but normally you would add .ddev when you add an add-on, your team is going to want to have that add-on as well. And so you would normally check that in. So here we're about to check in the things that we just added, and some things that I've accidentally also included. But most teams check in their .ddev directory, and when you add an add-on, that's what you're going to get. So the whole idea with the .ddev directory in general and add-ons in specific is that your whole team can share the exact same environment, and that should work with add-ons in general.
And just one quick question on that. Does that mean that everybody else wouldn't have that manifest that would allow them to remove that add-on?
It actually, they do have it. So here,
Okay,
I just added it. Here's what it actually added. So it's about to be checked in.
right, okay.
But it
Yeah,
would
sorry, I was
have-
looking for that and I missed it.
No, that's all right. It's a whole bunch of text. We can't, we can't see everything all at the same time. Oh, we had a long conversation in the Drupal Slack yesterday where somebody was touching a file or changing a file on the host and not seeing it show up in the container. And it turned out that he had double directories. So he wasn't touching the file that he thought he was, the one that he was looking at was not the same. We all do that, right?
I've
We
been there
have done
before,
that
yeah.
100 times.
Yeah.
It's but you can't see it at the time. You look at it and you look at it and what, you just cannot sort it out. So I want to take a look at some of the add-ons so that we can see what different people have done. So if we take a look at the DDEV Drupal Contrib add-on, for example, this is the DDEV Drupal Contrib add-on. And this, if you're not familiar with it, this is a way to let you work on a contributed module in Drupal. It's just some things that add a little help so that you can run tests and that sort of thing very easily. And it's a really, really simple and really useful add-on. So let's take a look at what it does. Here's the install.yaml, and it's super, super simple. So the install.yaml gives a name, and then it says the specific files that are supposed to be installed, and you'll notice that those are all custom commands. It's just install. This is like an installer for custom commands at its core. It does a couple other things, but it's an installer for custom commands, and you see that the commands are listed here. It's just grabbing those and installing them into where they go. And then it's adding a little bit of override to the config. It's a config.contrib.yaml adds some environment variables for in the browser. For in the inside the DDEV web server for the running web container, and it adds a post start hook. And so there's almost the whole thing. Is that the whole thing? It's a beautiful thing because it demonstrates all that you can do with a really, really simple add-on. So it's got these very simple copy paste custom commands that get installed into the for the web container, and then it's got a little bit of extra config, and it's got an installer, and that's it. And that's all that it takes to install this stuff and make it really easy to work on a contributed module in Drupal. So you can think of it as just it's not all that it is, but you can think of it as just an installer for a set of custom commands. Is there anything that you want to look at on this?
I guess some of the magic is happening in that symlink project command, since that runs on post start.
It's actually pretty simple. So I think it's just it's grabbing well, that's interesting. So it's grabbing from the Drupal GitLab a symlink project.php. So that's kind of an external dependency. I haven't taken a look at that. And then it runs that and sets it up. So I guess this is from the Drupal testing infrastructure, and it's a way to run tests on projects there, on contributed modules there. Oh, I'm missing the chat here because my window is covering up all the stuff. So, okay. Yeah, Ralph's been studying this one, and that's a good thing. The symlink. What does the symlink do, Ralph? It symlinks the actual contributed module, right? When it says symlink project, it's symlinking the contributed module into the Drupal setup.
Yeah, and you first git clone the module you want to work on. Then you install the module. Then you install the add-on. Then you run Composer, which is actually downloading Drupal core on top of that. And then with symlink, you create that necessary structure for actually being able to use regularly the site to test things.
The impressive thing, as I was saying, is that a thing this simple can offer so much value. I mean, it's a great thing. Any questions on this particular one or the install.yaml for this one?
I want to ask about uninstalling.
Yeah.
What happened when we uninstall? Everything gets removed.
When you uninstall, the things that are listed in the install.yaml get uninstalled. Let's take a look at the template, which has more the template has more detail on this in its install.yaml. So let's take a look at the pieces that we have. So in a template, you can do pre-install actions, which is essentially a set of bash actions that you can do. So those happen at before the install, and this has quite a list of them. Then it has this project files section. These are things that get added to the project. And they have to refer to things that actually exist, just like the custom commands we were just looking at. And then global files, we can also install global commands. Both the project files and so for your question about uninstall, when you do a DDEV get -- remove, the things that are listed in the project files and in the global files, those get removed. It's very important not to put a public directory in there. Like don't put commands in there as a directory by itself, because that'll remove all of the commands from your //.ddev. That's actually that's a flaw in either DDEV or in some add-ons or in the add-on management that you can do that. But since these are shared directories, especially these global files, we wouldn't want to remove the commands directory because it's going to make it very messy. So instead, it's doing one at a, it's naming them one at a time. Go ahead.
Would it make sense to give a namespace for an add-on in commands web? So like then each one only deal with their own and don't affect other commands?
It would make sense, except that what we're talking about here is that the add-on can do whatever it wants. And so namespacing add-ons would be something that would have to be added into DDEV core, and it would then If you did that, then the add-ons could only do things that had already been thought of. So it's and it is it is a flaw, and it's just watch for that. Don't put directories here. Actually, I think that I think there was a issue about that and a PR to allow removal of directories, and I think it might have been a mistake. Yeah, as Mark says, great power comes great responsibility. You can list dependencies, and one of our goals this year is to be able to auto install dependencies. So we have an issue for that. But currently you would have to install, like if you listed Redis as a dependency, you would have to install that first before you could install this one. But then we have post-install actions, which are just bash actions that you can take afterward. But now finally, to get to Ofer's question, we can also do removal actions. So we can explicitly clean up some things that might need to be cleaned up. So, but in general, for most add-ons, what actually happens is that just the main files that have been installed get removed. That's the usual situation, is that just those get removed. So we've taken a look at at almost all of the major possibilities for the install.yaml. Some things to keep in mind are that the install.yaml happens, that the things that happen in it happen at DDEV get time. And they don't happen again until you do a DDEV get again. So if you have some action that takes place, for example, these post-install actions, let's say that those have some logic in them, and your project changes, and therefore the logic would change. Well, until you run DDEV get again, that code is not going to be executed. So you would have to do a DDEV get again to get that executed, or handle those things differently. Handle them in a post-start hook, something like that. Probably it's a mistake to put a lot of logic in a post-install action if it might be dependent on other things that might change in the project. Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
I have an idea for my team to have an add-on that just installs some global commands for their machine that would be accessible across all of their projects, just some helpers or whatever. Now, I understand it that you have to add an add-on into a project specifically, but is there a way to do it just to your DDEV install so that the manifest file would go into your DDEV install and that kind of thing? Or would they have to just pick a random project, install it into that random project, and then just never remove it from that project?
Yeah, random project.
Okay.
That's global add-ons. I think there's an open issue for that, and it's a good idea, but it doesn't fit the current structure of things. The other thing you can do in your situation is completely different, and that is you can check in part of your global DDEV folder and manage things from there. I don't know of very many teams that have done that. That was always kind of the intent, but it probably doesn't work very well because it's not widely used and hasn't had much attention. But you could have a Git repository that was some or all of the global config directory.
I thought of that too. Yeah, that's also a good idea. Cool. Thank you.
Randy? We're going to take Yeah, go ahead.
Would it be possible to add private add-ons?
So that's another great question. When you say a private add-on, does that mean a private repository on GitHub?
Yeah.
Or yeah, so private repositories on GitHub and private and GitLab add-ons are two things that people have stumbled on, and I think that somebody has a good solution to the private. Seemed like I saw this going on. Oh, shoot. It wasn't here. I guess I'm confused. But this is the issue here about it. And for private repositories, there are two straight things. I guess Morgan 93's solution is what you could do. So you would you could check out the private repo and then do a DDEV get on the checked out code. So that's a very straightforward technique, and it's not something that really DDEV is doing for you, but that's actually a really important an important concept, is that add-ons can be downloaded from the regular technique, and this is in the docs, but I can do a DDEV get DDEV PHP my admin. That's just a short reference, and it goes out and it looks up things. But I can also do a DDEV get of a directory, and I happen to have this directory there. So I can do a DDEV get of a directory, and that also works. And that's why this issue would work fine here, is you would do a DDEV get. If it doesn't work, then you check it out. So that's a technique. Go ahead.
What happens now if you try, basically you have access to that private repositories, but others don't have. Would you get an error message if you're trying to run a DDEV get on a private one?
Well, in his strategy, you would, to actually use it, you'd have to have access on GitHub to it, right? So in other words, you would have to have privilege. But his strategy would be to do a DDEV get, blah, 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 or git clone and DDEV get from the directory. So that would be that's kind of a workaround. I would probably rather see the things that are suggested in this issue, which would be to use a token to actually get it. And if you had the token or the privileges, you could get it. I would love to see it improved, but I think that probably somebody who has the need is going to have to push that forward.
And it's good to remember with this second method too, these files will be committed into your project as well. So not everybody on the project would need to follow this. It would just be the one that's setting it up. So that would be a good point to remember as well.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Maybe we could add like -- private or something, and then it runs the git clone and like the little trick here automatically.
One other thing that I want to mention is that it works with any tarball. So any tarball that has the right format will work. So we can do a DDEV get on https://github.com/DDEV PHP my admin. Make this bigger /tarball/main. That's just GitHub's way of giving you a tarball of the project. And that also works. So that's a third technique for doing a DDEV get. How did we get here? We were talking about private repositories, GitLab repositories, other things. Thanks, Mark, for pointing out that only somebody could just do a PR with this and get it in there, and then it would be manageable by that person. And that's a good strategy. Actually, if you would comment with that strategy there, that would be great. Okay. Let's take a look at a very traditional add-on and see how it works. We'll look at the phpMyAdmin one. So this one is super, super traditional. And what it does is it runs an extra service that's integrated with DDEV. And so the core of it is something that used to be built into DDEV core, and it's just a very simple Docker Compose additional file. And that's what additional services used to be. There's actually a repository out there called DDEV-contrib that has lots of contributions that people made over the years before add-ons that were like one-offs of how do you do this, or how do you do solar, or how do you do blah, blah, blah. And those were unsustainable because there was no way to have any ownership of the content there. People would just discover something and share it, which is great. But then if it doesn't have any maintenance, then you know how fast stuff goes to hell when it doesn't have any maintenance. So the DDEV, so this is a classic example of that. It's mostly just a Docker compose.phpMyAdmin.yaml. And so if we look at the install.yaml, it's doing 3 files. I think we already looked at this while we were talking a little earlier. It's installing the phpMyAdmin command, and it's installing the Docker Compose file. And the Docker Compose file just adds an additional service, and we're calling it phpMyAdmin. We give it a container name. These are just required copy-paste things. We give it the image from the Docker registry that we want to use. 1 or 2 little extra things here. That we mount the DDEV config into it. It exposes inside the Docker network, it's port 80 for HTTP, and then it gives some environment variables to phpMyAdmin, including phpMyAdmin specific things about what user and password to use, and the host name and the port to use. And then it has some DDEV specific copy and paste things like the virtual host and the HTTP expose and HTTPS expose. These tell the router to take port 80 from this running container and deliver it to the user on the host on port 8036, and to take the same content from port 80 and to deliver it on port 8037 as HTTPS. So that's the that set of pretty standardized things is what we're doing here to run an extra service, which is the classic technique. This is you know, like the Solar add-on works this way, the Redis add-on works this way, the Elasticsearch, all of them are basically just provide some configuration for the extra service that you're running, provide an image name, provide the standard DDEV required things like the labels, and mount the configuration into it, and those kind of things. I know that if you have worked on one of these, this looks very familiar and comfortable, but if you haven't, it's a lot of text and it might not make any sense. Any questions or thoughts about this Docker Compose file? One of the key things here is that before add-ons, or today too, you could just take this file and drop it into the .ddev directory and use it and check it in for your project. And many projects do that. So that's a classic technique. It's just that add-ons are a lot better way to deliver it and maintain it. There's somebody struggling with one of these right now in the DDEV Discord, and I'm afraid that they just don't know, like they just don't, you know how many layers of stuff we all have to know to do anything. And this is one of those layers. It's too many layers for them. So maybe we'll be able to get them, there.
When I was starting with DDEV and trying to introduce it to the team, they were all overwhelmed by it all. But it's just, I explained to them, you only need to know a couple commands, and then there's a couple other people that know Docker on the team, and they're the go-tos if you have problems. But don't worry about it. It's just do this. The abstraction layers.
I mean, for the average person, you don't need to know anything about Docker except maybe how to install it. For the average person in the average project. But then when you go trying to create extra services that use, see, we have to know if you're going to use this phpMyAdmin image to run a container, you have to know this magic here. So you have to go out to their Docker Hub and read about it and try to understand it. And every single one of them is different. And so you have to, so it's just layers on layers on layers. Once you get into these things, that if you want to do an external service, you have to come to terms with how that service works. With Solar, for example, if you're really going to come to terms with Solar, you have to understand Solar itself and its configuration. Then you have to understand the Solar image, which has its own configuration. Then you have to put that into a DDEV service, and it's a lot. It's a lot. So there's no question that you have to be patient with yourself when you're doing these kinds of things. I want to take a look at one or two other things that are super easy to demonstrate. Like this one right here is an add-on that is in the RFA space. When we removed the ability to run Drush on the host for Drupal because it was silly, there were still a couple of people that complained about it. And so I made this add-on, and all it does is add a config with post start hooks that do what the old settings.ddev.php used to do. And so that's it. The install.yaml provides extra post start hooks is essentially all that it is. And the post start hooks look complicated, and maybe they are, but it's just a little bit of bash. It's basically adding a little something to the settings.ddev.php just after you do a DDEV start. so that people can still use the old technique of running DDEV, running Drush on the host instead of running it inside the container. But the bottom line is here that we're using an add-on here to deliver something that only matters in this case for our DDEV project. That's all. In other words, we're just changing the DDEV config with it. That's all that we're doing. I was just looking at this. I just realized this could be an exec instead of an exec host. Probably. Hadn't thought about that. Maybe not. Let's see if I had another one that would be a good example. So you've seen the PHPMyAdmin is a great example of adding a simple additional service. A overwhelming one, well, we might as well do we're not going to do all this, but the overwhelming one is the DDEV Platform SH one, which has a gazillion project files, including a Docker file, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's got a Docker file .platform.sh. So it changes the web container using that technique. It has scripts to understand all of the things. It does global files. It does pre-install actions. Oh, here's a good example of something you might have to do is checking the version of DDEV and seeing if it's compatible with the add-on. And this, you'll find this in a few of the add-ons. Stas is bound and determined to make this better. So he's going to make a version constraint in here so that you can just say what version is allowed with the add-on. And that will be significantly better. What this currently does is it does a DDEV debug capabilities and says, oh, is that capability in there that we might need to use? And if it's not, then complain and exit. So that's a good example of version checking. And probably in the next version or two of DDEV, there will just be a version constraint, a DDEV version constraint that you can use there. By the way, there is a DDEV version constraint that you can use in config.yaml. It's a little obscure, so if you didn't know about that, it's pretty useful. So if your project does something, if you're worried about your team upgrading their DDEV version, then you just put the constraint in there and it'll kind of force them to. I don't want to talk too much more. We've got 5 minutes, so I'm going to take 1 or 2 minutes and show a couple of the other features here that you might be interested in. One of them is interacting with the user. So you can interact with the user in a pre-install command. So you can say, is there an environment variable? And if not, say, please enter the environment variable, and then you can capture that. So that's an example. And I don't want to get lost in that because it is mind-boggling. It's way too difficult to read and understand in this particular case. The Platform SH integration there is a little over the top. But one thing I wanted to point out, it's the last thing that I'll do before we can talk just a little bit and finish off here, is that we have the capability of reading YAML files and using those in any way we want. So this particular one reads the platform.app.yaml and services.yaml and routes.yaml. And it also by default already reads your global config.yaml and it reads your project YAML. So it already does all of those things. And so in this case, we can use platform app throughout here. So we in the platform app, there is a type field, we can use that in our code. And I'm not going to get too deep in here, but you can also use Go templates in here. So that's what we're seeing here. So we didn't get to the advanced. So we didn't get to the advanced.
Maybe a part 2.
Yeah, part 2 and 3 and 4. I actually, the reality is the Go templating is very powerful, and the reading of YAML files is very, very powerful. But unless your head's in it, then it's just gonna, it's not gonna be worth talking about it together, because it's just, it's too mind bending. You have to spend a couple hours before you even understand what's going on. And then if the couple hours that you spent was last week, you have to do it again this week. Well, this particular add-on, the Platform SH add-on, every time I come to it, I like, oh no, what do I do now? So, okay. So I'm going to shut up. Questions that you might have, thoughts that you might have, any reactions, I'd love to hear. One of the great things to do is to go look around at these add-ons and see what people are doing with them. We didn't even talk about tests today. One of the key things about add-ons is that they're intended to have meaningful tests, and that is so valuable. On the official add-ons, we get notified when the tests start failing. And of course, the test can start to fail because DDEV changed. So the tests run against DDEV head and against the current stable of DDEV. And so if head suddenly goes bad on some of these add-ons, we get notified on our monitoring system, and we can go see what's going on and see if we broke something in DDEV. Yeah, Mark.
I am unmuted. Okay. If we wanted to submit an add-on for to be incorporated into the DDEV namespace, what's the process there?
So it's super. If you have an add-on that you like and you think that it has any traction or is valuable to other people, then you can just open an issue, or talk about it on Discord. The requirements for something to be official are basically, should it have a wider audience, right? I mean, does it need to be in the DDEV namespace? Does it have a maintainer who's committed to it? And does it have meaningful tests? And those are the things that matter. One thing that I didn't anticipate early on, one thing that I didn't anticipate is that lots of teams and groups don't care whether it's official. They just use it. It's there. It works. Just because it doesn't show up on DDEV get -- list, it does show up on DDEV get -- all list all. And there's 100 of those now. And I don't know. And some of those are reasonably popular. But a lot of people haven't seen fit to care. Well, the DCAN add-on, for example, DCAN is a big data manipulating environment that has some good integrations with various CMSs and stuff. The DCAN add-on is like really well maintained and a fundamental part of a number of things, and nobody has ever thought or said a thing about making it official. Well, the reality is it's in the get DCAN org on GitHub, which is probably where it belongs.
Right.
So it lives there with its own stuff. So that's, yeah. So anyway, that long
And you
answer.
can see the -- all, you can see those by a GitHub tag. If you put a tag on your project,
Yeah.
it'll search for your project by that. Okay.
It's the DDEV
Cool.
get tag is what it is. Yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of them. And I don't, like I say, when I look at those, the non-official ones, I see a number that are probably throwaway experiments that didn't work out. But there's actually, like the DCAN one, for example, that there's a lot of value in those, and they're carefully, there's a lot of them that are carefully maintained. I try to subscribe to them when I discover them and see what happens. So any other comments? Thank you all for coming today. Any other questions? I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording, and we'll call it